Hi, you guys. I missed you. I tried to do a video over the weekend, but there was nothing really juicy that would warrant a video because there's so much stuff happening. It's, for me, I like to get the bigger picture with the gossip, not just the little tiny, this blip, blip, blip crap. So anyway, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know. You know what I mean? I get so much gossip. I can't do little tiny videos because I'll be doing them all day. It's silly. Maybe I should do a gossip dump a week. Would you watch that? I don't know. What do you think? All right. So let's first talk about Season 13, Episode 13 of Real Housewives of New Jersey. Now, the women are back from Ireland, and we're getting a bunch of little moments with the family about different milestones. And by the way, I will be dropping gossip in this video that you maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't. Maybe I might disagree with some gossip that's been released. I might tell you about that today. So stick in there. Stick with me. Stick in there. Stick in where, Dana? Stick in there. Me. And the episode on the podcast this Sunday, it's going to change everything for New Jersey. Change it all. About to get really dramatic in New Jersey after Sunday. Nobody knows what's coming except the patrons, and it's big. By the way, on tonight's episode, Teresa's trainer, Nicole Peepus, is on the show. She makes an appearance at the shower, and they put her name up and stuff. She did an interview with me in the Patreon, and if you haven't listened to it, it's a great, very positive Teresa viewpoint, because I like to show all different viewpoints, really dark stuff against people, really bright stuff that's happy about them. And this particular episode was really Nicole kind of giving you a lot of insight into what Teresa's like in real life on the ground. A very positive interview about her. If you're a Teresa fan, you'll really enjoy it. Nicole Peepus. You can search it in the Patreon and listen to that episode. I think it's episode 96 or something. So the show starts out with the women coming back from Ireland and us seeing these milestone moments. And one of the milestone moments is Rachel Fuda. And Rachel is talking about adopting her son that she's taken care of since he was very small. And she wants to adopt him, and she goes and has a consultation with an attorney. And the attorney said we have to find the mother, and it may, then after we look for her, she's 45 days to respond. If she doesn't respond, then we can take action to this petition to adopt the son. Well, it's at this moment that I feel that the gossip that came out a few weeks ago, which you may or may not have seen, comes into play, another side to the story. And I wanted to share that tonight, given, the episode, right? But let me remind you of this Sun article in case you forgot. Great job, Diana Cooper at the Sun, for finding Rachel's husband's ex, who happens to be in prison. She's the mother of Jaden, who I've been talking about, who's 16. Anyway, her name is Brittany Mulch, and she is actually in prison right now. This is her. That's John Fuda's ex, Brittany. Brittany has also another child with a different man as well. She says to the Sun, I've tried to get in touch with my son, but John won't let me. Since I've gone to prison, John has prevented me from speaking and seeing to him whatsoever. This was not my choice. The former bartender mentioned she saw Jaden before her last major arrest. She's been in and out of prison since June of 2018 and said that each time she got out, she contacted John to see her son, but he refused. The New Jersey native went on to say that she made an extremely selfless decision to give up her parental rights for Jaden's own good and did what she felt was most beneficial for him since she was unable to be a part of his life due to her incarceration. Brittany added, when I'm out of here, I'll have to get a lawyer because he won't let me see him. Per her offender report, Britney is eligible for release in September of 2023, so that's coming up, but can remain in prison until her maximum release date, which is October of 2024. Britney has an extensive criminal record from the past 5 years, which was around the same time she last saw her son. She's been charged with burglary, entering a structure, laundering $250,000 in cash, and possession with intent to distribute crystal meth in the first degree. Britney claims she was found guilty by association in the burglary case, which involved stealing valuable items from a storage unit. After being in and out of prison, she last turned herself in to the Millicent Fenwick House, a 50-woman institute that has a residential community release program for incarcerated women with substance abuse problems, mental health issues, in December of 2022. Britney and John dated for 4 years, were engaged for 2 before they broke up in 2009. She claims this. New Jersey court documents exclusively obtained by the U.S. Sun revealed Rachel's husband, John, initially filed for custody years before he was granted sole custody. He filed to dismiss the first case in October 2008, citing reconciliation with Britney, but then refiled years later. And Fuda's had sole custody, since, basically. So then it goes on. This was kind of a dig at Rachel, which was interesting. In terms of her thoughts on Rachel, Britney said she doesn't know her well enough to form an opinion and says she's only met her once in the beginning of their relationship. When asked how she feels about Rachel wanting to adopt Jaden, she told the U.S. Sun she's not surprised. It doesn't surprise me one bit. I knew they would, so I was expecting it. I actually predicted this would happen when I first heard about them being on the show. John will take any opportunity to make himself look better by making me look worse, she continued, but I'm unfazed by what others say and think. Then there was this little treasure on All About the Truth. A source sent them this gossip. John Fuda changed his name years ago because he felt everyone knew the Fuda last name and he associated it with being rich. And he essentially wanted others to know that he was the owner. In reality, his brother, Anthony Teresa, is the owner, and Anthony never changed his last name. Now, John's mother's last name is Fuda. So he dumped his dad's last name, which is Detria, and took his mom's last name, which is Fuda, because the tile company in New Jersey is called Fuda. Allegedly, Rachel has been trying to get on the Real Housewives of New Jersey for years. And so part of that was like changing the way she looked and getting plastic surgery. And then the gossip was that John Fuda changed his name to make himself look more successful and like famous. And she even had a fan account that she used to comment on Real Housewives of New Jersey with on Instagram. Anybody thirsty? Then there's a scene with Danielle and her mom, and they're talking about how she felt ganged up on in Ireland by all the women and that she felt really bullied. And she found out that Melissa Gorga, it was alleged by Margaret, cheated on Joe Gorga in a parking lot. And should she tell Melissa? And her mom says, yes, you should tell Melissa because you yourself would want to be told. And then she tells us how close she is with her mom. Yeah. There's that scene. So we see Jen and Bill Aydin talking about going back to, the therapist, and Bill Aydin is not up for it. And they have another really problematic conversation about their relationship. And if you're smart, at this point you have to be wondering, what's going on with Bill and Jennifer Aydin's relationship really? Something's off. And I'll give you a hint. There is something very off in their relationship. I can't say what it is, but the whole cast knows. And let's just say that I'd be doing these scenes too if I was Jennifer Aydin. All right, let's move on. Then we see Margaret having a lunch with Lexi, and I think it's Lexi's mom and Margaret's mom, and what we've come to find out, although it's been a few months now, is that Lexi is living in the guest house of Margaret, and Lexi is separated from her husband, is intending to file for divorce. And her son is also living in the guest house with her. And Margaret and Joe are acting like adopted grandparents. And it's just really cute. And Margaret's totally there for Lexi, and she's very emotional in this scene, saying that Lexi's always been there for her. She even was like her nanny at one point and went through all of her troubles with her. And so she's happy to reciprocate for Lexi. And that's the scene. We jump to Coco's chateau, which is where Teresa's getting her daughters fitted for their gowns for the big wedding day. And the girls come and they get in their dresses, and it's a really beautiful moment. And then Joe Giudice happens to call, and I think it was Melania or Gia says, "Can I answer the phone? It's Dad," and show him the dresses. And Teresa's like, "Sure." And they answer. And basically, Teresa gets really emotional, starts crying, and says, I wish you could come back to America. I'm sorry you're stuck in the Bahamas because, he can't come back to the U.S., And the daughters, he says they look beautiful. And he's like, "I just want your happiness." And Teresa's like, "I'm so happy that we've come so far." And that's an emotional moment with everybody. It's kind of like a rite of passage in the Teresa Joe Giudice history books. By the way, Joe posted this tonight. Don't know what he meant. What do you think he means? It says, "Put me in a room with the same people who talk shit about me and watch how friendly they become." But no one really knows what he meant by this. And why did he post it tonight? The same night that season 13, episode 13 airs. Then we see Melissa Gorga with Joe Gorga. A few things happen with them. They get their daughter a brand new Porsche Cayenne. The Nana, Melissa's mom, drives up in the car and gives it to her. And of course, Antonia deserves this luxury vehicle because she's got an honor roll. So that's sort of established before she gets the car. Now, I spilled some tea last week that I got or DM'd information that Porsche got repoed at some point. I don't know, between that scene being shot now. And but it was only for a short period of time, and they had to pay the bill. I guess they forgot to pay the bill, and they had to pay the bill and the repo fee, and told you guys the story. So now you can appreciate it better. And there's a scene where Melissa Gorga kind of recaps Ireland with Joe Gorga and says, "Listen, I'm not fighting with Teresa anymore. I'm trying to keep the peace so you can go to the wedding. And that's all I'm about. And I'm going to the bridal shower." And Joe kind of looks at her like, oh boy. Frank comes in after riding his motorcycle in a vest with no shirt on that's leather. And it's kind of weird, but it's like lunch. And there's no one in the restaurant. And Dolores knows what he eats and orders it for him. And, he gets emotional and starts to cry because Dolores, seems to be prioritizing Polly over his needs. And this is upsetting Frank. And Dolores is like, "Look, I'm just trying to set boundaries here. And that's it. Some space and some boundaries." And he's like, "Well, our son just got his dream job and we're supposed to go celebrate. And, how am I going to celebrate if, Polly's there?" And she's like, "Well, he's going to be there. We're doing it." So he then says, all right, he gets it that now Brittany and Polly and all these other people have to be invited. And this is the new family, the new normal. Frank also says that losing Dolores is like losing his mom because Dolores is his best friend. So now what's he going to do? I mean, Frank, you're supposed to be with your girlfriend. She's supposed to be your best friend. Like, someone send him the freaking memo. Okay, so there were two big gossip dumps that happened. I think it was with Kim D. Also, Housewife Historian did some research on it, I saw. One was that Teresa was neglecting her dogs back when she had dogs with Joe Giudice, and that Kim D was furious because she had a puppy or something chained to, I don't know, something, and they were being abused or whatever. But I don't have any proof of this, so I was like, I can't really comment on it. I mean, that's a big thing to call someone a dog killer or neglector. So to me, it's really, that's really serious. So, I mean, a cheat, no problem. A dog herder, forget it. Like, that's next level. So I'm going to wait on that one, see how I feel. Some people said they had evidence. I'm like, great, send it. So I'm ready to listen. But then I heard this whole very elaborate story of how Joe Gorga, I think it was Jackie's friend from the old New Jersey days, friend's husband, I think it was Monica or something, and her husband was doing work with Joe all the way back into 2005, and they knew each other, and Joe started talking to the feds about Teresa. And this is how her indictment happened. It was all Joe Gorga. He was the rat. We love rats right now. That, snitched. I had to say it here. The reason I think it's BS is that if Teresa Giudice was truly indicted by something that her brother did in an interview or as a whistleblower, there's a few things you should know. Number one, she would get a copy of that interview as part of her discovery and her indictment, and she'd know exactly what her brother said, and so would her father and her mom if she told them about the indictment. She would have a conversation, be like, you won't believe what my brother, your son, did to me. I've got the whistleblower interview right here. Also, Joe would have gotten money as a whistleblower for turning Teresa in. So we would have seen some sort of, awesome thing he would have bought himself, I would imagine, with the money that he would have gotten. So, just saying. If you really read the indictment, okay, and you get into the granularity of it, which I'm not going to do here. I mean, for Teresa's sake, because she's trying to move on here, I can't imagine Teresa would want to bring this back up again, even to drag Joe. I mean, I'm really trying to imagine this coming out at the reunion. I don't know. We'll see. Because she's trying to distance herself from all this. She's over it. She even said it on the show. She was like, I don't want to revisit those times. I don't think it's worth dragging Joe over. I think she'd just rather not talk about it. Let's just suffice it to say that it would be a red flag to mortgage loan companies to see, 2 loans taken out on a mortgage where you have 2 different vocations, one as an executive assistant and one as a realtor. And then it would be very weird that you would then file for bankruptcy soon after. And you'd also be shooting your first season of a reality show called Real Housewives of New Jersey, where you're showing that you're really rich and your taxes are not lining up with what they're watching on a show. Okay, so let's just say there are other things that the feds could have looked to that would have red flagged this, and her being a public figure would have made them want to look into her. For sure. What I'd say more likely happened was that because they filed so many amendments on their bankruptcy, the trustee felt like something was off with all of this and has an obligation to report things like that. And then they investigate. If there's nothing to find, they move on. And if there is, then it can open into a whole can of worms, right? Because they grow it and they're like, well, how did they get that money? And how did they justify for that application? And, did they report it on their taxes and blah, 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 right? In all the 8 years since this happened, you don't think Teresa would have thrown this huge nuke at Joe if she had it? Whip out that interview and be like, here, Andy, my brother betrayed me. So then we move on to Teresa's shower, her wedding shower. It's supposed to be a surprise. It doesn't seem to be like a surprise, and it's Jersey style. Let's see, you like that Jersey grill? Anyway, she's in the car with the kids, and they're talking about how happy she is as usual and how everything's so fabulous, and the girls are kind of having a weird reaction to it. And then all of a sudden, Louis Ruelas calls and Teresa's answers, and he says, I'm inviting everybody that you asked me to invite except for Melissa and Joe. And Teresa panics because the cameras are shooting. And she goes, the cameras are shooting. And Louis goes, O-S-H-I-T. Because he's stone cold busted. She makes an excuse that she doesn't want to say it in front of the kids. But the truth is she doesn't want to say it in front of the cameras. Why? Because she doesn't want to make it look like Louis Ruelas is in on the demise of Joe Gorga and Melissa Gorga and her relationship and going to the wedding and all this stuff. And that there's like a little scheme happening here. What's the scheme? The scheme is that Louis Ruelas is not the peacemaker that he's pretending to be. He doesn't like the Gorgas. He doesn't want them around. He doesn't want Teresa around them. And Teresa, frankly, doesn't really want to be around them either, because it sounds to me like she complains behind the cameras all the time about them. So this is all kind of a ruse to make them look like they really want to have some sort of relationship with the Gorgas when they don't, including Joe. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some tea. You've been so patient. But I'm going to do it in the form of a blind because I can't go too crazy out here. Number 1, someone is going to lie at the reunion, and something said on tonight's show is going to be the subject matter of that lie. And it's going to cause a dispute between two very close, but characters that are struggling at the moment to find their footing in their current relationship. That's number 1. Number 2, I have this awful feeling like maybe someone hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on all the housewives to use against them. I sure hope that feeling is wrong. I wonder who could do such a thing. And the third thing is, I wonder if that private eye found anything. Or maybe there wasn't really a need for a private eye because some people already had secrets that were in plain sight that they wanted to hide and were afraid that their cast members might call out. Probably the people that are on the cast that are very nice don't have things to worry about because they won't ever have their tea spilled or their secrets. But there is one cast member that might. And boy, is she mitigating. And you see it a lot on tonight's show. Isn't this fun? You could just go on the Patreon and find out. But anyway, all right, let's keep going. Veronica Ruelas shows up at the baby shower, and she's sort of hosting alongside Jennifer Aydin, and it makes Melissa feel really sad. Even dear Nicole Peepers, who's Teresa's really good friend and trainer, says, like, I keep telling Teresa to make up with you, but Teresa's not doing it. I don't know what to do. The kids are having a great time. Everybody's eating lots of food and everybody brings nice gifts. It's kind of an awkward moment because I think the cast was wanting to bring up the thing that happened with Melissa Gorga and the cheating, but just didn't feel like it was the appropriate time at Teresa's shower. So it's like nobody knows really what to talk about. So they sort of just look at each other and try to make small talk, which is why nothing really happens in that scene. But the big thing that we take out of it is that Melissa Gorga is feeling like she's being replaced by Louis Ruelas' family. And it's an awful feeling for her, and everyone kind of feels bad for her. And Teresa is just living her best life, and she's just so happy, and she doesn't care, and she doesn't mention Melissa, and that's it. Oh, and we get a sneak peek. Then there's this moment where Louis Ruelas in next week's episode says, if I jumped into a snake pit, wouldn't you want to pull me out? And he's saying that the Gorgas are a snake pit. And so, like, that's what he's trying to do with Teresa. But my guest on next Sunday's episode says otherwise. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification button, and I'll leave it there.